Hello, my monstrosities. Hello once again. Today I bring to you Grotmas Calendar Day 8. We are talking about the Custodes in this one. And, well, there's a lot of feelings about the Solar Spearhead Detachment. As you can see, just a real quick though. Yep, nice little picture there. It is over in the downloads page of Warhammer Community if anybody needs to figure out where that is. But let's talk about Solar Spearhead. Auric armor is the detachment rule. The venerable war engines of the Adeptus Custodes possess aggressive machine spirits, while an Adeptus Custodes vehicle unit from your army is at starting strength unless it is an aircraft or it is battle shocked. Add 2 to the objective control characteristic of models in that unit. While an Adeptus Custodes vehicle is below starting strength, reroll hit rolls of 1. While it is below half strength, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, reroll a hit roll of 1 and reroll a wound roll of 1. Mortai Ancients. Mortoi? Moritai? Moritoi? Ancients? Add 2 to the move characteristic of models and Adeptus Custodes Walker units from your army and add 1 to advance and charge rolls made for such units. Alright. Keywords update as well. Uh-oh. Why did that do that? Okay. In the muster army step, you can select up to 2 Adeptus Custodes Walker models from your army. The selected units gain the character keyword. Designer's Note. This means that the selected models can be given enhancements and one of them can be selected as your warlord. I'm not salty that Synapse monsters, even though they direct the hive, not all of them are characters. You are. Jokes aside though, let's start talking about that front. This is Crusher Stampede plus more because Imperium always gets more. And I, like a lot of people, read it. I was like, man, that's what I wanted Crusher Stampede to be for the most part. And this is where I do the little spiel of I hope you look at what other armies have as well. And not just assume what it is. Because what I've seen so far regarding Solar Spearhead is a lot of feelings. First, let's get the elephant out of the room that I also find to be absurd. Most of the models that are applicable in this detachment are Forge World. That's insane. Now, how much that costs will vary, of course, with it being Forge World, but I think it is a bit absurd that this is like between this and the ironically Warrior Bioform Onslaught. Um, that is like these are fat like paycheck wallet hitters to try to make it run the way that it wants you to run. But without that out the way, talking more about Tyranids as Tyranids guy, not Tyranids guy, a Tyranids guy. There we go. That's more appropriate. Um, Everybody goes, "This is Crusher Stampede. Crusher Stampede did it better, did it worse." Da 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 da. And I'm quickly realizing nobody knows how Crusher Stampede works. Um, First off, to the people that don't know, Crusher Stampede got fixed, and you actually run it for more than one stratagem. I've seen a lot of that going around lately, where it's just like, well, yeah, you just go through all. It's just like there's more things in there, such as ignores cover, ignore modifiers to hit, for range for a monster. But this isn't a Crusher Stampede video. Why am I saying all of this for Solar Spearhead? Well, the other thing is that you have to remember what army these detachments are made for. I know sometimes it doesn't feel like GW remembered that, but at the same time, let's think about it. In Crusher Stampede, you get +1 to hit. You also get the same objective control thing. The thing that we're genuinely missing is like +2 to move characteristic and turning shit to characters. That'd be nice if they update that in the upcoming balanced data slate. That would be cool. But you get the same objective control thing. In fact, there's not the caveat of it being aircraft. Um, so the funny thing is like Harpy and Hivechrome, which can be um, in hover mode, so you don't necessarily have to worry about too many of the aircraft rules. So it gets a little bit funnier, but you can still get the benefits of OC on an aircraft technically in Crusher Stampede. But that's not the big kicker there. The other thing is that you have the difference of reroll hits of 1, reroll hits and wound rolls of 1. The reason that it doesn't necessarily matter between the two is that Custodes hit on 2s. And for them to get below and have below starting and have strength is a lot more probable because they have saves of 2. So usually they can tank a bit more. Meanwhile, monsters and tyrannage, most of them hit on 3. So that's when you would be taking them to 2. So you would rather have +1 hit versus reroll hit rolls of 1. And then for the other reason is because they gave access to reroll hit rolls in melee, and the exocrine exists, so you were getting reroll a hit rolls at ranged. So it does fit much better what's here. There's no real one's better than the other as far as that block goes. Now the other thing is though, they have addressed something into the walker speed. They gave +2 to walkers, and you'll find a couple of the monsters in Tyrannid are actually 8, 10-inch move. So, just taking the walkers up to speed of other things around there, that's fine again. Now, the keyword character thing, that's neither here nor there. Some people would be like, but now you can give up, bring it down, and assassinate in one fell swoop. And it's like, I mean, sure, I guess. Nobody's taking fix nowadays. So there's that. But yeah, that's the spiel on, hey, I don't think anybody actually knows what Crusher does. So let me tell you why both of them work for their respective armies. Now, with that out the way, let's go further into the enhancements to which I now start to get jealous. Adamantine Talisman, 25 points. Custodes model only. Improve the attack, strength, and damage characteristics of melee weapons equipped by the bearer by 1. For 25 points, putting that on pretty much any Custodes feels like it should be illegal. Augury uplink, 25 points. Custodes models only. The bearer has a 5 up Feel No Pain. Also feels like it should be illegal, especially when you're now putting it on possibly walkers. Honored Fallen, Aura, 15 points, Custodes vehicle. While a friendly Custodes infantry or mounted unit is within 6 inches of the bearer, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, reroll a hit roll of 1. This is nice for the things you're probably bringing outside of just vehicles. I don't know if you're balling like that, but it sounds like you are probably going to need to fill some points somehow, some way, considering how much of the Custodes vehicle line is fairly pricey. Veteran, the Cataphractoi. Cataphractoi? There we go. 10 points. Custodes infantry or Custodes mounted model only. In your movement phase, select one Custodes vehicle or mounted unit within 6 inches of the bearer. Until the start of your next command phase, that unit is eligible to shoot in a turn in which it fell back. Enhancements, nice. Jealous about this one, that's pretty good. This is pretty solid. Also pretty good. So at face value, everything about this would be nice. And then you have to remember who the detachment's for. And it changes slightly, like it's still okay. Uh it's not going to be as great as something like Star Shatter Arsenal because of the army that it's for. And it's not as bad as Release Crusher Stampede because again of what the army has at the time, right? So let's talk about that other end for a second here, where people are now going to put this in terms of Star Shatter Arsenal. Star Shatter Arsenal is good, and it has a different way about being the bigger equipment of the respective faction. But again, each one gives what is needed. The enhancements, one of them being an aura to give you the rerolls that you get here, is interesting. And then the detachment rule being assault or +1 to hit versus things on objectives and Star Shatter, well, we'll see that there is a way to get Assault. Now, mind you, for 1 unit, but Custodes, like I said before, hit on 2s anyway, so you don't necessarily need another thing for the hit. So, again, between the three of Star Shatter Arsenal, Solar Spearhead, and Crusher Stampede, they all kind of equal out on what the detachment actually gives the faction in terms of it. Now, it does seem a little bit weird given what the armies depend on, right? Like, Custodes don't depend on these vehicles. Necrons kind of depend on the things that are getting buffed in Star Shatter Arsenal. Crusher Stampede is a way to play Tyranids. That isn't necessarily the end all be all. You usually do still want some mix of monsters, but it's not as much of a hard carry as it is in Necrons, per se. So, that's where we go with the three. Hold your pitchforks. It is what it is. Let's go further to flawless construction. Your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase just after an enemy unit has selected its target. One Adeptus Custodes vehicle unit from your army that was selected as the target of one or more of the attacking unit's attacks. Transhuman. Each time an attack targets your model, if the strength is greater than the toughness, subtract 1 from the wound roll. Now this is one that I do take slight issue with, because again, we are talking about Custodes, which are tough, 2-up save, most likely an invulnerable save. They don't really need their already tough vehicles to have -1 to wound. But then a warrior needs a gaunt next to it to do it. A Poxwalker needs a Mephitic Black Hauler next to it. This is where you're on par with Star Shatter Arsenal, where you just have to be vehicle. And I mean, hell, in Star Shatter, you have to not be Titanic, so I guess that's a further restriction there. So, it is kind of odd that you just have this for free. And I guess before I go even further on the stratagems, I should say, detachment rule-wise, it is not going to be beating out Talons, Shield Host, maybe Auric Champions. We'll have to see the developments for Auric, because I do think there is a bit more things that people didn't necessarily explore fully. And after the win of WCW Folger Piles with Talents, I think people might be willing to go see more about Auric. But I still put him there. So detachment rule wise, it's fourth best. And I know no made individual actually wins tourneys too. So honestly, it's kind of just in the wash. I think certain metas, this will be a much more taken detachment, and other metas, it probably won't be. For a teams list, I don't know if you do this in teams either, if I'm being honest, because Custodes are just a stat check already. So to add a stat check to the stat check seems odd. Not gonna lie, it seems a bit odd. Unstoppable. Start of your movement phase, one Adeptus Custodes vehicle or Custodes mounted unit from your army. Until the end of the phase, models in your unit can move horizontally through models and terrain features. Start of your movement phase. Now, I'm seeing a lot of misunderstanding about this one in particular, which is, again, interesting. Let's talk about the pros and the cons, I guess. The pros, you get to move through models and terrain features. Or I guess the highlight, I should say, is terrain features and models. You get to move through models. You cannot be move blocked by your opponent's shit at all. Models and terrain features. Not just terrain features, which you go, hey, if you were next to a terrain feature, you could just not get move blocked anyway. Yes or no, but it is key to remember that if something like a bunch of fucking Taraxi just circles your mounted Custodes unit or your vehicle, your jet bikes or your well, your GRAV-TANK has fly, right? Your Dreadnought, you could just say, fuck you, and go. There is no drawback into which this has. If it's 4 inches to rain, yada yada yada, take a battle shock test. No, you don't have that either. You just go to do the damn thing. The cons. This is start of your movement phase. Now, I'm seeing two things about that spread already that I would like to clear up if you're watching my video. That's kind of the stock standard that it is in the movement phase. The rare exception is now with Lions Blade Task Force and Chaos Knights, into which you can also do it for the charge phase. Those are the exceptions to the rule. Pretty much everybody else that has go through wall, just the movement phase anyway. Now, the other con of this is start of your movement phase. So as soon as you go into the movement phase, before you get to moving shit, you have to identify which of your models is going to go through models or terrain features, which is clunky comparatively because you have to remember to declare that at the start of your movement phase. But I don't think anybody worth playing against is going to be like, wait, you've already moved one model. It says start. Fuck you. You can't do it. Like, I'm pretty sure most people will be kind enough to say, I don't give a damn. You were going to move it anyway, right? And let you move it there. So there's that aspect of it, which I guess GW, I don't know why you put start of your movement phase, because ultimately it doesn't do anything, but it also does because of rules as written. So it's just a little friggin' weird situation. Like, I don't know. It's start of your movement phase. Yeah, you can't charge through a wall with Unstoppable, but it is what it is on the fact that you can still go through walls with vehicles or Custodes mounted and through other models. It doesn't even need to be some grand situation. Just go somewhere. Then we go to Emperor's Vengeance. Fight phase. Just after an enemy unit has selected its targets. One Adeptus Custodes unit from your army that was selected as the target of one or more of the attacking unit's attacks. Roll a d6 on a 1. Adding 1 to the result, excuse me. On a 4 up, don't remove it from play. Fight on death. When doing so, it is assumed to have 1 wound if it was a walker. Then you can attack, yada yada yada. If it's a walker, you on 3s fight on death. Everything else on 4. This is nice for a Custodes unit, so it's less restrictive. That means that you will have your anything really, probably your wardens doing this as well, into which they are fighting on death as if Custodes weren't scary enough. So there's that. Relentless Persecution. Your movement phase just after an Adeptus Custodes vehicle unit from your army advances. That Custodes vehicle unit, until the end of the turn, your unit is eligible to shoot in a turn in which it advanced. If your unit has the walker keyword, until the end of the turn, your unit is eligible to shoot and declare a charge in a turn in which it advanced. Doesn't need to do anything else but be a walker, huh? So, movement phase. Your Custodes vehicle, if it's a walker, can shoot, can advance, shoot, and charge. Everything else, advance and shoot. That's pretty nice for 1 CP. Tag in Unstoppable. That means that you are advancing, going through a wall or 2, if you find a way to do it somehow, some way. Shoot, and you still can declare a charge. That's pretty nice. Um, it's nice again from the perspective of anybody else would like to have it, and it's not bad in any way. Like, if anybody else had it, it would be probably a bit too much, but the Dreadnought need help anyway, so this kind of puts them in line with doing appropriate amounts of damage per se. We go to Wrathful Advance. Fight phase, just before an Adeptus Custodes unit from your army piles in. That Custodes unit, until the end of the phase, each time a model of your unit makes a pilot move, it can move up to D3 plus 3 instead of 3 inches. I'm so glad they didn't make it 6 flat. Hooray! Feels like a odd restriction that they did, and I don't know how often you want the CP for possibly going for 4 instead of 3. But it is just a Custodes unit, so you will find use out of this, especially when you are coming out of shit like a Land Raider and needing to pile in or something. Punishment inescapable. Your shooting phase. One Adeptus Custodes unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot this phase gains ignores cover, and until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack, you can ignore any or all modifiers to the ballistic skill characteristic and or all hit modifiers to the hit roll. We have this in Crusher Stampede. This is a lot more applicable than you might imagine. And I say imagine. People really underestimate a big thing. Shooting with ignores cover and ignores mods for some odd reason. Don't know why. Um, they probably will have that same misconception on some of your dreadnoughts or your heavens forbid a GRAV-TANK or something like that. Um, that's a good 1 CP spending. It's the rules that are written are good. It is just a shame that you can't actively buy a lot of this without hurting your wallet more than you probably need to most of the time. This is more so if you have this shit, this building, if Henry Cavill's watching this video, just sitting there like, yeah, I'm all good to go. Like, if you have this shit stored away, there you go. Spearhead will be fun for you. But I would, as I guess, a more meta thing, besides just looking at detachments, I would look on things like eBay and shit first and buy wisely instead of rushing to put this on the table. Because don't get me wrong, um, it is competitive. I'd say it's competitive. I know that might get some criticism. Goodness, criticism upon first one because of what it is, but I think it is competitive. There is play for quite a few things that aren't just the vehicles in here, which is what scares me. Um, where you can start using shit that isn't just that, Custodes unit, even though, there's not the greatest shooting from out of Custodes beyond their vehicles. But, fight on death and pile in does give you access to just doing shenanigans while somebody has to fight off a fucking dreadnought. So, there will be room for you to make your points up in this. But I think for most purposes, you will be still fine trying to figure out the rest of your codex because apparently nobody really wants to do that. So go ahead, play with your codex, and then if you have the time and or money, I guess, Solar Spearhead won't treat you too terribly wrong. I don't think. I think people are kind of shitting on this a bit too hard already, which is kind of odd. Just wanted to bring up something like Talons of the Emperor, where you do have access to shit like a Feel No Pain 5 up against Psychic Attacks and Mortals, or +1 to the hit roll, compared to something like Solar Spearhead, into which you do have your vehicles getting -1 to wound, and ignoring cover, and re-rolling hits and wounds while you are hitting on 2s most of the time. And if you ignore the ballistic skill modifiers to hit roll and shit like that, you are always hitting on 2s and re-rolling that shit for a lot of damage. So there is still opportunity that you go, well, Talons of the Emperor serves me pretty right for serve most of my models. Yeah, that's true. But don't forget that if you need to get things off of points while you already are playing an elite army, this might help you further that game plan in ways that other people aren't ready to tackle. Because we are, especially now, getting ready for squads of wardens to beat our ass, right? But not everybody is looking at 3 grav tanks and a dreadnought while there's maybe one or two squads of wardens. Nobody's necessarily looking at that to the same perception of it right now. So this is an interesting attempt at mixed arms, even though this does exclusively say vehicles across the board, and even more so Walker. I think this takes the mixed arms of Talons of the Emperor maybe another step forward, into which you are having access to doing shenanigans that gives you a bit more play. A lot of the criticism I'm seeing with Custodes right now is, yeah, we don't know how our codex works because it's fucking boring. I don't want to play Custodes that way, and it's like, I don't know. I Custodes is known for, like, there's your stat check. Here's your stat check. Now, I do find it weird that bikes didn't get more support in this one. Everybody's been asking about jet bikes for a minute, so maybe they throw in one or two more things that say or mounted when this updates sometime, some way. I don't really know. But beyond that, I just want to point out detachment rule to detachment rule. It'll be fine. So going on, let's talk about first the one that's probably the most appealing, the Telemon Heavy Dreadnought. T10, 2 up save, 4 up invuln, 12 wounds, has access to martial kata, because why not? Each time an attack is allocated to this model, subtract 1 from the damage characteristic of that attack. If this model is equipped with 2 Telemon, cast this weapons in addition to its armored feet, add 2 to the attack's characteristic of those Telemon Castus weapons. Castus, you're going to have to help me out on that one. I say why not to martial kata, because it is kind of weird that they still have access to just beating some more ass with sustained hits or lethal hits, even though they're a fucking walker. So that's just interesting. Now, going to that point though, these are going to hurt when you add something like rerolls while you hit on twos, and you have shit like devastating wounds and blast at d6 plus 3. The fighting aspect is what's going to be some getting used to for some people, because it's like, why do you need that many attacks at 12, 2, 3 as a dreadnought? But you might as well be looking at this one for the minus 1 damage and minus 1 to wound for 215 points. That's a package not many armies can just lift, especially when you combine a 2 up save and a 4 up invuln at T10. That's kind of hard. So, for stat check alone, the output might leave some people yearning for more, depending on what loadout you give it. But going back into, maybe you don't necessarily just go, oh, I have 7 dreadnoughts I can finally put on the board. This might be one of those, this is the starting point before I come bring the rest of my shit to beat your ass. Maybe. Now, if you have more faith in the Telemon, all means. I just know this is one that everybody's been clamoring to please come down in points for a while. And I think that this is a sign of they might bring it down in points, but if they don't, it has a decent detachment to make it even more scary for its points. Then we go on to the Orion Assault Dropship for 690 points. If a unit disembarks from this transport before it moves until the end of the turn, that unit is eligible to charge in the turn in which it advanced. Why am I pulling this up? Because it has a capacity of 12 Adeptus Custodes infantry models, but furthermore, it can also transport 1 Venerable Contemptor Dreadnought, 1 Contemptor Achilles Dreadnought, or 1 Contemptor Galatus Dreadnought, and then 6 Custodes infantry models. If you have this in your possession, this will be scary as shit. 690 points is steep. It is. Forge World. So, that is not something I'm gonna be like, yeah, everybody just has an Orion Assault dropship. But I will say, if you have it, T12, 2 up save, 5 up invuln, 22 wounds in this detachment. Rerolling hits and possibly wounds later once you get under 11 wounds. That's still quite a few amount of wounds to play with. You are taking your opponent off of the fucking board, and if you do this as aircraft, you are doing that at almost any fucking angle people want, while still dropping a dreadnought and some fucking Custodes on people's heads. We have just seen the shenaniganizing that could happen when you have a Harridan. We've seen it with the Tiger Sharks this edition. We've seen it with the Void Raven bombers. Void Raven bombers, right? Feel like I said that name wrong for some odd reason. But I don't want to be the one to raise the alarms, because GW clearly doesn't want aircraft doing things this edition. But there are some shenanigans afoot if you would like them to be. If you put an Orion Assault Dropship and Arachnus Heavy Blaze Cannon, two of them things, a couple of targets on your enemy's field, they will fucking die with rerolls and you doing -1 to wound while giving it a 2-up save. And yeah, it can be nasty. Oh, O'Reilly. Um, you can also make it. I'm sorry, no, it is just Walker. Let me backtrack that. I was going to say make it a character and then give it a 5-up Feel No Pain, but I forgot for a split second there. It is Walker, so thank goodness you can't do that. But Orion Assault Dropship. Let's get into those dreadnoughts that can come out of the dropship. The Venerable Contemptor Dreadnought is T9, 2 up save, 5 up invuln, 10 wounds. The first time this model is destroyed, remove it from play without resolving its deadly demise ability. Then at the end of the phase, roll 1d6 on a 2 up, set this model back up on the battlefield as close as possible to where it was destroyed and not within engagement range of any enemy units, with d6 wounds remaining. 160 points. I find this to be fucking funny and the spammable one, because not only does it have decent enough ranged weapons, it does have good melee, but for the one that can stand back up, if you make that motherfucker fight on death and do so that it is now at 1 wound, so it is rerolling hits and wounds in melee, you are probably taking out, if not the entire unit for the first go around of that fight phase. You're probably taking it down, assuming you haven't fought between those 5 attacks hitting on 2 your re-rolls. You're getting 5 things out the fucking way. And then you bring them back, d6 wounds, maybe do the shit again. Maybe it becomes, maybe it switched from being their fight phase, now it's your fight phase. And since you were out of engagement range, you now have to charge again. But as close as possible, so you do it at a damn near unfailable charge, 2.1. Uh, that's pretty fucking funny. Right? Wait, hold on, outside of engagement range, so it could be 1.1. What am I talking about? 160 points. T9, 2 up. The distance is lacking, but now you have a walker that gives you the access to advanced shooting charge. There's play here. I think before we write off all the Contemptor, the Venerable Contemptor Dreadnought, you take it for a spin and see how you feel about it first. Because before it's damaged, it is 5 OC. After it's damaged, is re-rolling hits on 2s. So, at the very least, do do yourself a favor there, and then if you go with the Karis pattern assault cannon, you can reroll wounds into some death wounds. I'm just saying, that's pretty nice. Now you could stick with the multi-melta, but hey. Then we go to the Land Raider. I wanted to bring this one up as well because it is T12, 2 of save, 16 wounds. Put this motherfucker through a wall until each time a unit disembarks from this model after it has made a normal move, that unit is still eligible to declare a charge this turn. Assault Ramp, if you didn't know, 240 points. It has a transport capacity of 6 Adeptus Custodes infantry models. The range profile of the weapons is pretty fucking good. You get 2 Godhammer Lash Cannons, 48 inches, 2 attacks each, hitting on 2s, strength 12, AP 3, D6 plus 1. For a much cheaper version, of the Orion Salt dropship that actually is sold right now. Um, Now you can't drop out a dreadnought out of this bad boy, but the reason that this is a little bit more scary compared to doing something like this in Soulforge Warpack, um, yeah, that's also another one where it's just like, I don't know where that. Anyway, neither here nor there. Before I go on that tangent again, where you can't do it with what? Well, you can do it with Chaos Land Raider. It's scarier here because you are able to then put Custodes through the fucking way. You've given 10-inch movement bonus through a wall and then put Custodes through it. And those Custodes might also pile in for an additional D3 plus 3. And then if you thought that you had a way to handle them, they fight on death per model. So I think going back to the maybe this is more combined arms than just spam walkers. This could be frightening to have maybe one or two land raiders and call that your reason for bringing Solar Spearhead and just beat some ass with like the other shit. Like that for 240 points. Yeah, that's that's pretty fun. And we go to the Ares gunship. I know. I know. I just want to highlight things that you can have fun with if you have. In Furnace Firebombs, each time this model ends a normal move, you can select one enemy unit it moved over during that move until the end of the turn, and models in that unit cannot have the benefit of cover. In addition, roll 1d6 for each model in that unit. For each 6, that unit suffers 1 mortal wound. T12, 2 up save, 5 up invuln, 22 wounds. Look at those beautiful, beautiful ranged weapons, okay? So again, 580 points. This is aircraft. It does have hover, right? 20-inch movement. If you start this in hover, you can put it through the fucking terrain and shoot whatever the fuck you want, and they can't really shoot you back. And instead of spending a CP to remove the cover um, for one weapon, you could just remove that cover because you moved over it, right? Instead of with punishment unescapable, you have that. That is the Ares gunship. Now, the Caladius GRAV-TANK, excuse me. This is one that I was like, huh. People do have this model. Like, quite a few people have this model. At least I see competitively. T11, 2 up save, 5 up invuln, 14 wounds. Twin Arachnus Heavy Blaze Cannon, twin linked, 48 inches, 4 attacks, hidden on 2, strength 12, AP 3, D6 plus 2. That means once you take any wounds, you don't have to wait until you are below half, i.e., under 7, where you start to get to the danger zone. You have twin linked, so you are just putting shit out. And the reroll hits for all of this shit becomes even better when you have advanced firepower. Each time this model makes an attack with its twin accelerator cannon that targets an enemy unit, that attack, if it's excluding monsters and vehicles, that attack has lethal hits. Each time this model makes an attack with its twin Arachnus Heavy Blaze Cannon that targets an enemy monster or vehicle, lethal hits again. So, depending on what you're getting firing at, I guess I should say, and what you have equipped on it, you're getting lethal hits, and after losing 1 wound, you are re-rolling that hit. And before that, you are OC6. So lethal hits with the possibility with the twin Iliastus accelerator cannon, rapid fire 4, twin linked, you are getting one of those 4 attacks hitting on 2s. Strength 10, AP 1, damage 3, rapid fire of 4 at 24 inches after you've gone through a wall, maybe. That's 8 attacks, twin linked, lethal hits, re rolling 1s. You're already hitting on 2s. And with the twin last group, sustained hits 1, less impressive, but just throwing it out there that I've seen quite a few people have these, and this is going to be your detachment to make them even more fun than what they were already doing. Contemptor Achilles Dreadnought, another one that surprisingly a lot of people have. Yeah, from what I've seen. If you are a Custodes player that are like, I don't know who the fuck you are looking at, I don't have that, please let me know in the comments. But, or maybe don't. You don't have to bust yourself out if you don't want to. Just saying. Yeah. Dreadfoe. Each time this model is selected to fight, you can select one enemy unit within engagement range of it and roll 1d6, adding 2 to the result if this model made a charge move this turn. On a 4 through 5, that enemy unit suffers d3 mortal wounds. On a 6 up, that enemy unit suffers 3 mortal wounds. So, here's the play. Contemptor Achilles Dreadnought, give it through a wall. Give it advance and charge. Advance shoot and charge. Do the damn Dreadfoe. Do tank shock. I don't know. If you have all that fucking CP for some odd reason, it's not necessarily like you have to spend it on rerolls because you're rerolling. The same way people get tired of Eldar, you now have Eldar Custodes? But it's vehicles, I know. Which means it hurts a little bit more, right? So Eldar Custodes, and with this, you can really make sure one thing's gone, maybe two, because you also have Lance with the Achilles Dread Spear. 5 attacks, hitting on 2, strength 12, AP 2, damage D6 plus 1. So, you know, it does have reason to be here. I was, of course, being hyper realistic with doing that one play on one thing, but that clearly gives you a way into which maybe you see that you can apply several things here to decent effect with this one. So yeah. Contemptor, Galathus, Dreadnought. I don't know why they're giving me such trouble today. Each time a melee attack targets this model, subtract 1 from the wound roll, 165 points. T9, 2 up save, 4 up invuln, 10 wounds. It has an okay flamer. It has okay melee weapons. It's not the bee's knees right now, but it is damage 3. So you could guarantee that this is damage 4. And you have Martial Kata because it's a walker. You can get 8 attacks at. Or I'm sorry, that's right. This would go up in attacks as well with Adamantine Talisman. Make it a character. You go up to 9 attacks hitting on 2, strength 9, AP 2, damage 4. Yeah. Well, I bring that one up over this one just because the attacks profile is a little bit more desirable in the melee front for the walkers. So, you know, that'll pick up way too many things that people aren't necessarily expecting to get hit by damage 4 out of it. Go to the Palace GRAV-TANK. In your shooting phase, each time this model makes an attack that targets an enemy unit that is below half strength, add 1 to the wound roll. 105 points, plus 1 to wound. You're already hitting on 2s. Reroll hits, possibly reroll wounds if you get this bad boy alive. Keep it alive under 4, but it's possible because you have -1 to wound because you were a vehicle. If you know the strength is greater than your toughness. Your toughness is 8, which in this case might be more helpful than if it's 9, because if you are maybe not. Hold on, how do I want to word this? With 9, there are a lot of things that already are equipped to shoot T9 effectively. So their weapon would be the midpoint between having like 2 or 3 heavy shots or a bunch of little shots, because T9 is like, all right, it's strength 9. I need like 3 or 4 shots. Okay, so they're equipped to handle it on 4s or take out what they need with that strength of 4. However, if something shoots you that is making use of the fact that you are T8, it becomes different because that's a different breakpoint into which most of the things going into it are a bunch of piddly attacks that are hovering around strength 7 and strength 8 and going for wounding on 5s and 4s. So it'll do that. So now if everything necessarily is doing that, you'll be fine. And then comparatively, once more, if it is something that goes, all right, I blow this off the field with my 2 2 strength, 18 attacks. Yes, I did think of the rupture cannon. Um, Instead of wounding on 3s, you take that to wounding on 4s. So there are options to possibly have a Palace GRAV-TANK be that weird inefficiency of an enemy's army to where you pop it and you then find yourself still alive on, 1 through 3 wounds, and then making use of reroll hits. Or sorry, reroll hits, reroll wounds, +1 to wound. You don't need +1 to hit. Alright, so that's where it's what I'm trying to get at that is possibly there. Now, you're doing all that for 1 damage. I don't know, but for 105 points, it's not the worst. It's not the worst. So, yeah. Then, I wanted to talk about some of the infantry. Mainly, main person right now, Trajan Valoris. I find that this would be scary, into which while this model is leading the unit, each time a model in this unit makes an attack, ignore mods to the ballistic skill or weapon characteristic skill and or modifiers to hit. Once per battle at the start why did my mouth do that? Once per battle, at the start of the fight phase, you can select one of the following to take effect until the end of the phase. The model's Watcher's Axe melee weapon has an attack characteristic of 12. This model has a 2-up invulnerable save. So, getting out of a Land Raider, right? You take Trajan Valoris' squad, and then you just make them pile in a little bit tougher. And on the crackback, you have a 2-up invulnerable save for yourself. Well, for Trajan, I guess I should say. And you make them fight on death. Good luck lifting this squad without getting hurt coming out of a Land Raider. Now, I wanted to talk about a Blade Champion as well. And because it has, while this model is leading a unit, you can reroll charge rolls made for the unit once per battle. In your charge phase, this model's unit is eligible to declare charge in the turn at which it advances. You can advance and charge. You can advance into a vehicle. Vehicle goes charge somewhere else. Like, there's a lot of things that could just be absolutely gooberfest with a Blade Champion squad being in here. So, wanted to highlight that as well. Custodian Wardens. They have Deep Strike. While the character is leading this unit, you already have the transhuman situation. Custodian Wardens, transhuman, double down with Valoris, and your vehicles having transhuman. This is the stat check of the stat check of the stat check. I don't know how the fuck somebody's lifting this effectively. This is what I want to see go against Star Shatter Arsenal. Not necessarily because I feel like both are just turbo busted, but I think that would be such a class that people would be entertained as if we're not looking at plastic figures go back and forth. Like, it'll damn near turn into cutscenes watching that shit go back and forth. In my opinion. So that's what I'm excited to see. Also have Living Fortress once per battle. At the start of any phase, this unit can use this ability. If it does until the end of the phase, models in this unit have the Feel No Pain for Up ability. So yeah, Wardens, once again, just thinking about it. Wardens, Trajan Valoris, Land Raider, go through wall, assault ramp out, beat some ass, maybe do it again. I don't know how anybody's necessarily stopping this if an entire tournament was won because Gazgul was illegally in a battle wagon. This just seems like that'll be that on steroids. Good fucking luck. Okay? Shield Captain on Dawn Eagle Jet Bite because we should talk about the Mounted. Once per battle, at the end of the fight phase, if this model's unit has fought this phase, if it is within engagement range of one or more enemy units, it can make a fallback move, or if not within engagement range of one or more enemy units, it can make a normal move. Once per battle round, you can select one model from your army with this ability and target this model's unit with a stratagem. If it does, reduce the cost of that use of that stratagem by 1 CP. Okay. I don't think this makes the bites that good, but I don't think they can get worse. Wow, Monster, thanks for that. Yeah, it's 140 points for just the leader, and then you tack on 200 and what? Where'd I put you? Oh yeah, 225 points for some custodians to go with it. I can't necessarily see it being worth the points investment, but again, it might be a nice skew of a one of just a one of that nobody necessarily is ready for a jet bike to move that fast, and this is your alpha strike. Just a one of, hear me out, put him through a wall, beat somebody's ass, and call it a day for the one of. Because the clapback, they are still T6, decent enough wounds, 2 up, 4 up because it's Custodes, right? And you do get Lance. So maybe, maybe. Look at the Virtus Praetors before we close this one out. Each time this unit advances, auto advance 6, Quicksilver execution. Once per battle after this unit ends an advance move, you can select one enemy unit that it moved over during that move, then roll 1d6 for each model in this unit. For each 2 up, that enemy unit suffers 2 mortal wounds. This is the one that's probably more likely if you were to consider jet bikes seriously for a second. Um, do a couple of mortal wounds. You have access to tank shock, steal with other shit. You have access to that just absolute buffoonery of advanced shoot, charge, tank shock, backslash shock. So, if you don't feel like getting engaged with combat with everything on the fucking board, maybe one squad of Virtus Praetors just to soften shit up on your way there could be nice. They also have, you know, okay ish ranged, and they do have a good melee weapon comparatively, right? So that's just an option that maybe it's not too bad. I don't think it's going to be the way that you shift your entire army. I don't think I can recommend more than one or two, more than one unit of these, even in this detachment. I do feel you that your jet bikes are in a rough spot, but you know, for what it's worth, I think that this is a bit more competitive than half of the people are giving credit, but at the same time, not as competitive as the other half of people I'm seeing. I think it is a very in the middle, just a solid detachment, buffs things that would like to be buffed, can get scary if you have the wallet backslash collection for it. And yeah, Solar Spearhead, I'm looking forward to seeing some people run it just for the hell of it. But yeah, if you like the video, like it, got a comment for me, comment, and until next time, peace out, my monstrosities.